me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire.
The clock is ticking on the NFRN Elite Cup Series regular season. With just 2 races remaining, drivers have little time to claim a victory. Here at Peoria Motor Speedway, this is going to be another opportunity for drivers to find their way into the 16-person field. After seeing how they ran in the Amateur Cup Series race, it's time for the Elite guys to figure out what strategy is going to get them to the front. It's time for round number 15 of the Elite Cup Series, the Peoria 500. Hello again, everybody. I'm Colin Denton with RVN. Once again, welcome to Throwback Week, as several of these drivers are sporting some old school schemes. But that is just part of the festivities, as we are going to see who will be the next driver to go to victory lane. 14 different winners in the first 14 races of this season. 3 of them being part-timers, meaning that we're going to have at least 3 drivers in the playoffs coming on points instead of a victory. However, we want to see if a full-timer is going to be able to take a victory here in Peoria. Now, we saw Austin Rogers in the Amateur Cup Series race take his victory to get himself guaranteed into the Amateur Cup Series playoffs. But he was able to make that pass on pit lane, and that was the only real overtake we saw for the lead, minus Connor Mays staying out on strategy. Now that's going to beg the question, who is going to be able to get the good strategy here? Because there is going to be very little passing. There might be a little bit of scrambling for position further back in the field, but we clearly saw that there is one group on this racetrack that is dominant, and there is not a lot of passing to go around. So, who is going to be able to take advantage of the stuff that they learned from the previous race and get themselves into the big show? Leaving Seattle and getting out of the West Coast stretch, we head to Peoria, located in the heart of Illinois. That might have used a play on words for the fair that's hosted there annually. 8th largest city in the state until last year, was the global and national headquarters for Caterpillar Incorporated. Several big names to come out of the city, among them former Yankees manager Joe Girardi, Warriors player Sean Livingston, and late comedian Richard Pryor. Let's take a hot lap around this 1.5-mile oval. Very similarly shaped to Indianapolis Motor Speedway if you just slice off a mile. Even down to the banking, you can see it's very low banked, which means they've got to use a little bit more brake, and they can't rely on that banking to get the speed in the middle of the corners. Going to turn 2, just past the short straight on both ends of the circuit, and down the long backstretch, you see the tachometer start to blink. They are running that 4th gear all the way until that engine allows it to, and then heading through turns 3 and 4, you got to slow down. Give the engine a little brake as you come down the home stretch. Bottom line is going to be the preferred line, as we saw in the Amateur Cup race. We shouldn't expect anything different in Elite, and you'll cross the start-finish line, hopefully out in front at the end of the day. Connor Mays and Chris Harley led the part-timer race, but quickly positions got shuffled a little bit. Chris Harley, we talked about that outside line not being the preferred line. Well, he's suffering from it, and he's going to fade all the way to the back. A little bit of a move here on the white flag lap. Kenny Knox going to the underside of Eric Van Arsdale, but fortunately for him, being the last lap, he's not going to lose enough positions to lose his spot. Connor Mays from the pole of this one will go ahead and take the checkered flag. Here's the final finishing results, and those transferring to the main event: Connor Mays, Dwayne Calloway, Donnie Moore, Kenny Knox, Eric Van Arsdale, and Sparky Sun Devil, Kyle Law, and Robert Harrison on the outside. Chris Harley went all the way to last place after starting on the outside of the front row. It's a tough day for him. We head to our hot seat driver. That would be Jake Baskinger, our latest winner at Castle Gorge. He also put up an 8th place finish at Knox, and a couple finishes just outside the top 10, but 4 straight top 15s here. That is a good momentum boost going into this race. Going to try to see what he can do to ensure that he has a playoff spot by the end of the day. Let's head down trackside. Time to get the starting command for today's race.
It's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Here to give the command, please welcome our Grand Marshals, members of the NASCAR Hall of Fame class of 2018, Ray Evernham, Robert Yates, Ron Hornaday Jr., and Ken Squire, joined by Bojangles Chief Executive Officer, Clifton Rutledge.
Drivers, start your engines!
All right, Daniel, fired up when you're ready, buddy. Copy there, bus.
54 laps the drivers will turn on this circuit, and we are looking forward to each and every one of them. Let's take a look at the starting grid for today's race. Out in front is Nick Smith in his number 18 Bobby Labonte-inspired throwback. He will start on the pole and take home the pole award. He has best finish of 4th twice over the past 5 races, but it's finished 30th or worse in the other 3. Stuart Gradden will start on his outside in the number 29 Bobby Allison-inspired throwback. He has a streak of 3 top 20s after a slump. Row 2 has Donnie Moore, who finished 6th at Castle Gorge, his best in the series, and Jonathan Rains, the first practice leader. In row number 3, we have Reese Butcher, who broke his post-victory slump with a 5th at Castle Gorge, and David Davidson, still under the microscope to make the playoffs. Positions 7 and 8, Mitchell Mark, 3 top 10s this season, including Castle Gorge, but he struggles on the speedways just like those guys in front of him. He'll start alongside Noah Ponser, who also has speedway struggles and no top 5s on the season. In row number 5, we have Dwayne Calloway, the twin ring winner, who's qualified for all of the speedway events this year in the series, and Ryan Maiden, who has 2 top 10s this year, but none of them coming on speedways. Moving back a row, Sparky the Sun Devil couldn't finish the job at Castle Gorge, coming up in 2nd place. Aiden Shepard is currently 2nd in points among those without victories. Row number 7 has Jet Kraus, an up-and-down season for him. He was the runner-up at Pikes Peak. And Bruno De Barros, one of the best on speedways, an 8.7 average finish. P15, Stephen Willie, whose terrible season has been noted, just 1 top 10 on speedways in 12 starts. And Johnny Gardner alongside him. Speedway is his best track type, 4 top 10s, however none of them have come this year. In row number 9, Eli Bright, top 10 at Green Valley, was his only top 10 of the season. Connor Mazel-Sard alongside him, 4th at Twin Ring in his series debut. And around at the top 20, William Brock, the only driver that's currently clinched into the playoffs for sure. He'll start alongside Dale Jr. Fan 8883, 3rd in points among those without victories. We'll see the rest of the starting order going by on the bottom of the screen. And obviously we've had 14 different winners in the first 14 races of the season. Maybe this week we'll have a 15th winner. And it could be a full-timer that's able to help out their team get to the playoffs. However, we're going to have to drop the green flag and turn some circuits around this 1.5 mile course. And we're going to see, with the lack of passing that they had in the Amateur Cup race, it could be the perfect opportunity for some of these guys that qualified really well. Nick Smith, Donnie Moore perhaps could spoil the field. Stuart Gradden, if he can get to the inside line, might have a shot at a 2nd victory to be our first multi-time winner of the season. There is your field of 42 as the pace car pulls off the racetrack. The field coming down the front stretch. A ton of nostalgia lined up on the racetrack. Green flag flies for the 15th round of the Elite Cup Series. Rounding out lap number 1, Nick Smith stays out in front, and the way that they all stacked up on the restart, it seems like Stuart Gradden got a good opportunity to get into line as he will line up in 3rd, but Donnie Moore now in the 2nd place, trying to seek out a victory. Could try to spoil Nick Smith today, but he has the early lead. Smith, one of 11 veteran drivers in the field, Eric Van Arsdale qualifying into the race included. This would be his first win of the season if he's able to get it, but his 2nd of his career, as he was able to win at Bull Run last season. And trouble off of turn number 4. Several cars into the wall. And that is going to bring out our first caution. The other JR crunched up. And more contact further down the front stretch. Noah Cars, Gerardo Ron, and Julio Caesar piles in the Mundinger late. Little bit of drama at the end of the 2nd lap of the race. There was the 98 of the other JR. Throwing back to David Pearson, an Illinois native. This was a track he really wanted to run good at. There is Caesar. Already has the victory. And there's Van Arsdale. He has damage himself. Mundinger also has a victory. They're all trying to find their spot in line. Rambo. We know he's on probation for this race. However, we'll see on the replay if he had anything to cause this one. But in the meantime, pit lane is open And we're going to see, is anyone going to take pit stops on the first 3 laps of the race? We're going to see a lot of takers, but some are going to stay out. The leader, Nick Smith, comes down. Dwayne Calloway, Noah Ponser, Bruno De Barros, they are a few that stay out. So now we're going to see what the strategy ends up being, as obviously they haven't put a lot of laps on their tires. But it looks like some of them are at least going to come down for fuel. That much we know. Obviously, a few of those damaged cars in the back are going to have to repair what they got on their bodies, but we'll see what those undamaged race cars will do on pit lane. We're watching Nick Smith, Donnie Moore, Reese Butcher. Butcher's going for 2 tires. Moore's going for no tires, while Smith's going for 2. That means the 43 car is going to be the first one off pit lane. And he will take over a few spots on the racetrack. And obviously, they're not going to be the leaders as some of those cars stayed out. There's a look at your top 10 as you also see Mitchell Mark, Jonathan Rains, Davidson, Bright, Maiden, Shepard all going for the no tire strategy. While 3 of the top 4 drivers coming in went with 2 tires on the right side. Here's what we saw. Well, actually, this is on the back stretch of lap number 2. So the 23 and the 78, a couple Toyotas tangling together. And it looks like that's going to create a stack up. So you see some of those guys dipping down, and yeah, there's 5 cars actually going down in the apron. John Arndt slipping in the grass, so that actually creates a stack up, and I believe that's going to translate all the way over into turn 4. And you can see the 98, he's trying to scrub off speed because the 05 right in front of him isn't all the way up to power, and the 98 gets turned by the 42 and straight into the outside wall. Collects Kenny Knox. There's the 4 car spinning in the back. Obviously, the accident was not his fault, so he'll be fine on his probation for now. The 84 getting a little bit collected in there. There's the 27 coming in. He is going to run into the 42 of Cody Hagan. But it's definitely the other JR, the native of this state, who wanted to have a great run today, who got the worst of it. So from a different angle, and so there's the ending of that crash. But let's see what happened further down the front stretch. And it looks like Carranza gets into Noah Cars. Oh, driver's side impact with the pit lane wall. I don't believe that's going to take him out of the race, but you see the rebound, and he's going to hit NASCAR Fan 19, one of those guys that's looking for a playoff spot. So he takes a pretty big hit in the door. Mundinger was collected. There's Gerardo Ron. Brad Stover jumps on the brakes to avoid that one, and Julio Caesar comes in nowhere to go except right into the back of the 97. So yeah, a completely separate incident from that was in turn 4. Few onboards. Here's the other JR. Really saw the speed that came off the 05, and the 98 was just trying to find a lane in order to make the pass. Visor cam from Jake Baskinger as we head to break. A little bit of a nick, but he drives on. We'll be right back. While the NFRN 24-hour race will be taking place during the off-season between seasons 2 and 3, the sign-ups to join the race are narrowing down. The deadline is Elite Cup Series race number 16. The video with all the explanation you need to get signed up is down in the description. Make sure to check it out and get your name entered. Coming out of the caution, Julio Caesar and the other JR, the only two that are going to drop out after that accident in turn number 4. For Caesar, it happened to be heading into turn number 1. Green flag back out. You see Cody Hagan coming up the inside. He did fall a lap down. He might be a slow car, and we'll see. Some of those guys that stayed out, they're going to have a good jump, and John Arndt getting held up by Cody Hagan as he wasn't even able to get all the way up to the front, and there's contact. Donnie Moore and Mitchell Mark into the wall. No caution yet, and now we have a caution. Gerard Aron is spun around further back in the field. But Hagan kind of caused the stack up by not being able to get all the way up to the front of the field. Caught a few drivers off guard. Moore and Mark in particular. Mark's another one of those Illinois drivers, and we're seeing a couple of them having some problems early on in this race. So the yellow flag has waved, and obviously the guys that stayed out, they got pretty well off, and there's problems in the short chute. Stephen Willie has made contact with Jack Porkins. I'm not sure what that's about. They've already taken the caution flag. Don't know if that was inadvertent and they just couldn't get it woed up, but the 62 already with problems this season in general. He might be going, well, I figure he's going back to his place in line, maybe, but he might want to say something to Jack Porkins, who kind of got him turned right there in between turns 1 and 2. So the caution flag is back out on lap number 7, and pit lane will be reopened. Dwayne Calloway, Ponser, Dave Barrows, those guys that stayed out the first time are coming down. Nick Smith, though, as well as Stuart Gradden, they are going to stay out on the racetrack. Donnie Moore, he was able to get out at the front of the field on the pit stop before, but then his progress has been kind of hampered by the contact he made on the racetrack, hit the wall in turn 2, and now he's going to have to come down for damage repairs. So it's a tough break for the 43 driver. We're seeing at least 2 tires going on to the sides of the 93 and the 92. Callaway spent a little bit more time than Ponser did, and he's going to lose a lot of spots. And obviously Donnie Moore, well, looks like he's going to be done with his service. But ultimately it's going to be Jonathan Rains coming out on top with no tires once again. Surprised to see some of these guys, they're still not taking tires. They're just going gas and go. Not sure why they don't just stay out on the racetrack, because at this rate, they're going to be wrecking for a lot of the time. It looks like Mark might have hit the 43 car, but that was also a result of the stack up that the 42 was causing. John Arndt kind of got loose. He was able to avoid it at the end, get to the underside. But that contact did not bring out the caution flag. Obviously, the 91 car spinning around did. He got kind of pushed up high going into turn number 1. Then coming out of the corner, Rambo, the 4 car, took a hit into the outside wall, and it looks like the 91 gets turned by the 23 into the 97, but then he'll slide up the wall all on his own. Just adding a little damage to the 91 of Oran. Well, that spin will bring out our second caution, and that already matches the number of cautions that we saw in the Amateur Cup race. We had Colin Lindsay going on his side, and then a caution that ended the race. A big pile up between Kyle Law and Steve Ray. So we're heading into the next green flag, and now Nick Smith has reclaimed the lead by staying out, coming down the first time and getting 2 tires. Now we're going to see if he can maintain that track position. He gets off to a good jump over the 42 car of Cody Hagan. Obviously, he is slow, and there are going to be cars affected by it once again. Stephen Willie, the first one, he's back up there in the 4th place. He might have been one of those cars that stayed out. And he is going to get held up as the entire inside line goes underneath him. In fact, that inside line came from getting underneath him, and another spin by Aron in the back of the field, and the caution is out once again. Oh, and Noah Ponser's into the wall in turn 3. So a couple of issues on the racetrack, and 1 car on his roof. Eric Monaco going for a flip in turn number 4. And a big hit! Caleb Campbell gets hit by Kenny Knox off the turn number 4. The 41 spinning like a top, and he's going to stay on his roof. 2 cars going for a flip in turn number 4. Monaco being the other one. There's his damaged race car, and he is definitely done for the day. Kenny Knox, who plowed into Campbell to get him on his roof. Poncer pulled away. He somehow got spun in turn 3. Fitzwater Sr. with some damage, and this crash was not kind to Gardner Racing, as we're going to see the 6 car. He also has damage, and probably a little bit more major. You can see that hood is all crunched in. Might be struggling to see a little bit right now. Pit lane is open once again, and this time it looks like the majority, if not everybody's coming down. Hagan is still on the racetrack. He's a lap down, so obviously can't take his pit service right now. But yeah, everyone's coming down. There's obviously going to be a few damaged race cars, at least those that were able to pull away, that are going to want to get that stuff fixed. Watching Nick Smith, Stuart Gradden, and Jack Krause are top 3 to see what they do on their strategy. Krause is going to go up on the jack on the right side. Gradden and Smith pull in simultaneously, and they are going to go up on the jacks as well. Jack Krause going for 4 tires. Haven't seen that in the first couple stops, but obviously we were looking at the top 10. And Nick Smith and Stuart Gradden going to settle for 2 tires. And Jack Krause, he's still going to come out with a top 3. 3rd position, 3 wide coming off pit lane. A big crunch right there. But Jack Krause going for 4 tires. That's a bit of a surprising move to see him be able to maintain his track position but get all the fresh rubber. So here's a Ron. He's going off the front end of Philip Fry coming off turn 1. So far this race, it's been the complete opposite of what we saw in the amateur race. We have barely been able to turn a green flag lap without someone getting into the wall. You can see a very minor incident for the 91 car. Now here's what happened to Poncer. There's the stack up, and it looks like it's going to create an accordion effect, and look at everyone just kind of scramble right there, and 92 might have gone off the front of the 93. I think John Arndt gave him a hit. Amethyst Ashley and Fitzwater Sr. getting collected in that one, but will pull away. But yeah, a pretty bad break for Poncer, who was up there contending for the lead before the last pit stop. And then after that spin, there's a big conglomerate of cars in the short chute, and there might be contact between Ashley and Fitzwater Sr. and possibly Monaco as well. Might have gotten help from the 76, not sure on that though. So that's a spin. There's a spin right there between Porkins and Van Arsdale. Just a lot of stuff to look at right here. Monaco kind of goes up and over on his own from hitting Fitzwater and the wall at the same time. A bit of a touch from Gardner right there. That might be part of where he got his damage. The 4 car plows into the 22, who got collected in that one as well as Van Arsdale. And Monaco just goes for a tumble. But obviously not the only one we're going to see in this wreck. Fortunately for him, he will land on all 4s. But not before he gets a little hit from the 57. Not sure where she was planning to go. Certainly going to hurt Monaco in the points, as well as a lot of these drivers that were looking to get a playoff spot. Dale Jr. Fan 88-83 included. He was pretty close on the cut line. So, okay, Gardner gets a hit right there on the 41. And even bigger contact as he goes in and hits the 76. Kind of out of control. And then the 20, indecisive on where to go as the 41 comes down the racetrack right into the door. Look at that height that the 41 got from that hit. The car could have driven underneath them before that one was over. Then he's spinning helplessly, and ultimately he will not find his way back onto the rubber. He's going to need a little extra help getting out of that car. Several drivers involved in this crash that were within striking distance of making an open spot in the playoffs, including the 76, the 33, and the 41. Let's see Ponser's view. That thing just cut right suddenly, which means he definitely should have gotten some help from the back. And I believe we're going to ride along with him as he's going to go through the chaos that's in front of him now. There's the initial accident. He'll go low of that, barely missing the 4 car. Then he'll see a... just drive right by the 41. Here's the visor cam from Jake Baskinger, who's a little bit further back in the field. It looked like he had just missed that one, but you see the hood damage. And he was just able to avoid running into the side of the 41. The 20 was not so lucky. Here's the view from one of the flipped cars, Eric Monaco. Yeah, watching that angle, 57, 9, and the 33 did not give each other enough room. Here's the 41. As we head to commercial break, prepare yourself for a big hit in this one.
Man, we're out here to test. Nothing but rain. Hey, where's Mario?
2 champions sharing a winning formula. Haviland Formula 3.
I hear your power is looking good for you this year.
It's unbelievable.
Must run pretty hot in a tight draft, though.
Got that pretty well beat.
Complete professionals who rely on the same complete protection you can buy right off the shelf.
Yeah, I'm wide open all the time.
Hey, only way to do it.
Haviland Formula 3 motor oil from Texaco.
Quit raining, please.
If you're looking to take part in the NFRN Part-Time Truck Series, signups are always open. The race number 9 deadline has passed. We are still awaiting both races 8 and 9, but you can sign up to start in race number 10. That deadline is yet to be determined as we progress further into the season. So the link is in the description to take part in the remaining races, and just as a reminder that any full-timer in any of the 3 NFRN series are ineligible to sign up for this. A medley of incidents, and there's only going to be 3 cars that drop out of the race. It's going to be the 2 cars that flipped Caleb Campbell and Eric Monaco, and the driver that hit the 41, Kenny Knox. But we are back to green flag, and Nick Smith's going to be out in front. Going to get away from the 42, and it looks like that's the strategy of most of the field as they try to get around him. Oh, a little contact between teammates, Sparky and NASCAR Fan 19. Oh, and more contact and trouble. 64 around as well as the 42. Donnie Moore might have gotten involved in that one as well. And contact between the 64 and the 48. Another hit from the 4 car. Tyler Markell, looks like he might have cut something in the radiator with that hit. And his car's going to come to a stop. 64 car of NASCAR Fan 19. See the 43 and the 42 both involved in that one. Rambo coming down the pit lane. Looks like it's 3 strikes and you're out because he's been involved in 3 accidents today. And I guess considering the fact that he's got a damaged race car and is on probation, don't want to try to risk getting a further penalty. Looks like he is going to drop out in this one. He is officially declaring out as he heads back to the garage. But obviously it didn't look like any of the accidents they were caused by the 4 cars, so I think he'll be safe in terms of not getting any further penalties. And it looks like this time, compared to the last few stops, that pit lane is actually going to be pretty slim. Just a few cars coming down. Davidson, Mundinger both have damage of some sort. But it looks like the drivers are starting to value track position more than fresh tires, even though some of them haven't even been taking tires. So there's the contact between teammates, the 64 and the 16, as they try to avoid the 42, and they're going in 3 wide. How does this accident start? Donnie Moore with contact from the high side. 43 hits the wall, 64 runs up into the 42, and will go for a spin himself. These two, the 64 and the 43, actually have a little bit of history. If you recall, all the way back to race number 8 at 8 Bowl, I believe the 64 was trying to come up the speed coming off of pit lane, and the 43 ran into him while he was running that full speed. And okay, here's the contact between 64 and the 48. Barely any contact, but apparently enough that it split something in the 48 that made it stop running. Yeah, a little bit of an interesting incident there between the 64 and the 43, considering that they do have that prior history. And there's that contact. Like we said, it's very minor, but it's apparently did enough damage. And it looks like, I imagine it was putting down a little oil, because then the 4 and the 9, yeah, they slide down the racetrack. So I guess 48 definitely put something down, and the 9 and the 4 lost control. That's why the 4 ran into the 48 car. The 22 also down there in the grass. Yeah, everyone back there that got caught behind the 48, they're definitely running through some oil of some sort. So yeah, there was definitely an issue with the 48 once he made contact with the 64, and that will supposedly take him out of the race as well. His season not as bad as Stephen Woolley, but he is second to last in the full-timer points. So we're heading to our next restart. NASCAR Fan 19 returns to the track a lap down. He's going to be behind Cody Hagan. It's kind of a bad break for him. Tyler Markell and Rambo, as we expected, are both out of the race. Green flag flies, and yep, the 42 once again going pretty slow, and definitely that contact he just made with the outside wall is not going to help in the 64. Definitely not appreciating it. He's pushing him a little bit further up, trying to get around him, and now the 16 goes around in turn 2. Stephen Woolley makes contact, and Brad Stover into the back of the 16. And there's a big incident coming off of turn number 2. Multi-car accident, several cars slamming into each other and the wall. And this one's certainly going to take out a number of drivers. Gerard Oran once again involved, this time with a little more substantial damage. Brad Stover, one of your playoff contenders. David Davidson, looks like his car might be okay, but he's kind of stuck right there. Johnny Gardner, Noah Ponser. Dwayne Calloway with heavy damage. Reese Butcher, another Illinois driver. All three of them had problems in some fashion today. Jonathan Rains, he led first practice. He's all crunched up. Eric Van Arsdale. Stephen Woolley, he ran into the 16 car. His bad season's going to continue even further. Jake Baskinger, a hot seat driver, and the second practice leader. He's going straight to pit lane. Look at the field. It is cut down tremendously. And once again, it's going to be well, at the front of the field, they're not going to come down. But a few cars will. John Arndt, who has his hood taken off. I believe he had contact early in the race that necessitated that. Dave Barrows comes down, as well as Porkins. Now let's break down this incident. The 42, okay, so the 16 hit the outside wall, and that is how he gets spun off the front of the 42. Looks like Jonathan Rains also made a similar hit. 62 had nowhere to go and ran right into the side of the 16. Both the Checkmate Motorsport cars involved in this one. Stover right into the back of the 16, nowhere to go, and he's 15th in points right now in playoff contention, but not in at the moment. And he's going to hit again. Just waiting for it. It's going to come late. There it is, the 6 car of Johnny Gardner. Rampage drives into there. Baskinger. Dale Jr. fan 88-83. That's Poncer in the smoke, and there's Davidson getting his contact. He is obviously trying to fight to get his way into the top 25 so that his victory helps him get into the playoffs. Man, this was a bad accident. And there was more going on at the front. Okay, Mitchell Mark gets hit by the 62, who I believe is already smoked. Okay, actually he's not smoking at this point, but turns the 90 head on into the wall, and there's where the 62 gets some major damage. And Philip Fry, man, squeezes the 90 into the wall. Mitchell Mark going to take a huge hit off the 93 and get a little bit airborne. Oh, and the 90 also gets airborne as the 77 runs into the back of him. Man, with the other... Oh, Fitzwater Sr., he went into the outside wall. What I was about to say was with the other JR out and in last place, the other 2 Illinois drivers in the field really crunched up their race cars right here. This is the speedway equivalent of a big one. We're going to see a lot of cars taken out, but several others that are going to stay on the track even though they're damaged. Brad Stover. Now the 77 of Jonathan Rains. He's behind Sparky, who starts this one. He looked like he was in the clear, tried to stay against the wall, hoping that the track would clean itself, and then ran into the 90 in the smokescreen. On the 76, he came up the racetrack. That might have helped out a little bit of that accident right there as we watch on the visor cam of Jake Baskinger. The 76 was a little bit low, slid back up the racetrack, so I think that might have had a little bit of a bigger impact on that first incident. And then there was problems further down the racetrack as Eli Bright, low and sliding back up into Ryan Maiden. Aiden Shepard was also down there. He might have gotten nicked right there, but will pull away better off than either Maiden or Bright will be. But that was going into turn 3 that those drivers were really low. And then there was an incident in the front stretch, and it's going to be Cody Hagan once again. And maybe Porkins got into Brock, but ultimately Brock is turning the 42 into the wall. And Hagan's going to go back first into the pit lane wall. When we return, we'll see who is still in the race and who is out.
Where's he going?
I don't know. Hey, he's going hunting.
Man, I thought you'd never get here. You got your camo?
I never go anywhere without my real tree.
Man, what took you so long?
I had to drive 500 miles to get here.
Prior to every NFRN race weekend, we bring you NFRN The Drive with highlights and analysis of previous NFRN races and previews of the upcoming ones. Make sure to tune into the next edition of NFRN The Drive as we bring you playoff cut race coverage for the regular season finales of the Elite and Amateur Cup Series at Nazareth. Be sure to stay tuned for our next 2 editions of The Drive for a few surprises. For our next edition, we'll be unveiling our playoff coverage for the final 10 races of the Elite Cup Series, as well as for the coverage of the Amateur and Truck Series playoffs. It does not take much analysis to say how bad the season's been going for Stephen Willie, but we can give a little bit of a baseline compared to last season. We pulled up this stat. The worst top finish through 14 races. For Season 1, Emmett Juckham and K-Dude 124, their best finish through 14 races was 9th, which means that was the lowest mark for drivers to have their top finish, which means that everyone to this point had scored a top 10. The best finish for Stephen Willie this season through 14 races, 25th. And he is not going to eclipse that mark today. He is out of the race with that damaged race car. And this has just been an absolutely awful season for the driver that made the playoffs in Season 1. and he is definitely not going to be making it this year. And as we turn our attention to the drivers out of the race, it is a laundry list. Callaway, Willie, Ponser, Gardner, Butcher, Rains, Stover, Fitzwater Sr., Mundinger, and Baskinger all out of the race, which means 2 of the 3 Illinois drivers in the race are now out of it. Mitchell Mark remains on the track, though. He is still trying to push his limits. Green flag back out. Nick Smith has the track position. He did not come down on that pit stop. And we are hitting halfway in the race, and we have run 1 incident-free green flag lap. Cody Hagan continues to be a little bit of a nuisance as he stacks up the field. We're through turn 2 at least. Nick Smith pulling out to a bit of a lead over Stuart Gratton. Decent restart. Trying to make sure that he can stay away. Oh no, and there's NASCAR Fan 19 into the back of his race car in turn 3. Caution flag once again out. Oh, and there's more problems coming out of turn number 4. And they're still piling in. Aiden Shepard, Donnie Moore, John Arndt. Shepard is smoking, and he is one of the guys on the cut line for the playoffs. And with that smoke coming out of his car, that is definitely going to be something that takes him out of this race. But he was second among the drivers that were inside the playoff cut line. John Arndt also involved. He is first, but he is well out ahead. It doesn't look like he's going to lose that spot. Dale Jr. Fan 8883, he is also involved. He is third in the playoff cut line competition. All the top 3 drivers still without a victory in the point standings. They are all involved in this accident. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Jack Porkins also got in there late, so make that the top 4 in open points. The first guy that didn't get involved in that crash was NASCAR Fan 19, and he's already a lap down. But we are going to see the pit lane open. It's a pretty narrow field, but it is going to include our leaders that have stayed out for the past couple pit stops. So Smith and Gratton going to come down, as well as Jet Krause. Also seeing Davidson, Mark, Cars, Arndt, they're all coming down. Lengthy pit stops for our top 2 guys, and it looks like Nick Smith's going for 4. Stuart Gratton barely going to beat Noah Cars off pit lane. But Smith's going to end up going for the rubber there. All right, here's what happened, and William Brock, this is not the first time he's tangled with somebody, and referring back to, I believe, the last caution flag when he got into Cody Hagan, that potentially had fault from Jack Porkins, but this time definitely would have been his fault in terms of turning NASCAR Fan 19 into the outside wall. So excuse me, I was thinking about the bigger accident that I forgot NASCAR Fan 19 had wrecked in the back, so he technically was a part of this caution. Brad Stover's already out, so that technically makes Bruno DeBarros the still out there guy that is highest in points and wasn't involved in this crash. Although, let's see, because he's kind of in the mix as well. Ryan Maiden and John Arndt on the bottom edge on the apron. Maiden slides up and hits the 7 of Aiden Shepard. John Arndt's going to collect Donnie Moore. 7 goes right into that one, so yeah, the 12 did get by, and very close. That'd be a lot of cut guys. And there's Jack Porkins running into the back of the 43. Eli Bright also coming in here hot, and I think he's going to at least nudge the 76, and there's that contact. But that's definitely going to put a damper on their days. We're going to have to see how they compete with the 64, if any of them are going to be able to stay out. So they slide by the 64 there, and here's the onboard from Aiden Shepard. Not a direct head-on hit, but definitely a pretty nasty angle to head in at such a high rate of speed. But he is going to limp back to pit lane, but unable to stay in the race. He will drop out along with Dale Jr. Fan 8883 and Jack Porkins. So guys, 2 through 4 on the playoff cut line standings are now out. Cody Hagan is out in the front of this field. He is not the leader. Carranza is. But it looks like Hagan got his lap back, and now he's going to really stack up this field. Carranza to the high outside. Contact between him and the 12 of Bruno DeBarros, battling for the lead. Connor Mays and Ryan Maiden are going to slip through. And this battle is not over there. Bumping and banging. Man, that 42 caused some real trouble. And sliding through the grass, Jack Krause. Oh boy, that was a really close call, but they'll keep it going. Someone's coming down the pit lane. I believe that's John Arndt. And he is coming down. But we have finally, for the first time since the first 2 laps, hit a green flag run without an incident. Philip Fry also coming down. He has some major damage. I don't know if that was coming after the green flag flew, but he is coming down now. So ultimately, Ryan Maiden going to take over the lead as Carranza and DeBarros battled, and now Carranza turns Hagen into the outside wall. Big hit from the pole sitter. Nick Smith into the side of Hagen. And there's a bigger crash going into turn 3. Another multi-car accident. DeBarros involved in that one. Eli Bright with some major damage. DeBarros might be able to continue. It's not too bad on the front. Nick Smith plowed right into Hagen, who was the first one to go around off the front end of Carranza. Stuart Gratton second place to start off this race, and Davidson trapped up against the wall. Jet Krause with a big hit. Rampage and Amethyst Ashley both already have victories, so wouldn't hurt them too bad to just pull it in right now. And there's Cody Hagen. I believe he is finally going to be done. And with good riddance for some of these drivers that really had gotten frustrated with him. Obviously, Carranza definitely got frustrated. It looked like he turned him into the outside wall. But here comes our 2 leaders, Ryan Maiden and Connor Mays, and I believe there will be a few cars that follow them as well. Yep, we do see quite a few of them coming down. There are a few that were still on the racetrack. I believe those were lapped cars. And based on who is on track, it looks like all the lead lap cars are on pit lane. Gerardo Ron already in his pit stall. The first pit stall, he came from the backfield today. And he's going for 4 tires. Connor Mays is now pulled in. Jacks up the right side. We'll see what his tire strategy is. As Ryan Maiden also going under with a jack. That's going to be 2 right side tires for Connor Mays. And it's going to be 4 tires for the leader coming in, Ryan Maiden. So interesting plays being made out here. Connor Mays, wide gap coming off pit lane. Looks like it will be William Brock and Noah Cars that come off next, followed by Jet Cross and Donnie Moore. Just look at the variety in pit cycles, and it looks like the bottom 6 on that list all go for 4 tires. Jet Cross goes for none. Top 3 go for 2. So here we go. Here's where our accident started. Carranza, who was the leader coming to the restart, he was on the outside line. I don't know that he necessarily... I wouldn't want to go as far as he spun him on purpose. Might have crowded him. Hagen might have crowded Carranza up the racetrack. Might have wanted to look at that head-on angle better in order to make an assumption. And then there's Nick Smith. I believe that he didn't have the room inside. He might have been on the outside and didn't have the space down low to clear him and try to make a sudden move to the outside. Amethyst Ashley barely getting by. Lucky that she didn't run into them as well. Nick Smith's had a couple of big hits already this season. Cody Hagen will be able to drive away. And then here's contact up here. Connor Mays and DeBarros make contact. That sends Mays in at a terrible angle, slides through the grass, back up the racetrack, and hits DeBarros. Into the outside wall, the 12 goes. Connor Mays is going to continue driving. Oh, and there's contact back there. It's Stuart Gratton and David Davidson. Gratton really goes into the wall head-on. And there was a contact there between Eli Bright, and there's Jet Krause going out the front of Carranza as well. Rampage, I believe, made contact with the 29. Noah Cars runs into the 1, and then here comes Amethyst Ashley. Already missed the Smith and Hagen incident, but she's going to have nowhere to go when it comes to the 44 car. And there you see the remnants of the 12 and the 88 colliding. On board Eli Bright. There's her angle. The 12 came down, hit the 27, but he drove away. The 88 was really the one that slammed into the 12 directly. Here's Stuart Gradden's angle. Let's see how Davidson... Oh, Davidson suddenly cut down to the left, came back up the racetrack, and there's where Gradden's going to go head on into the wall. And from Nick Smith, going to be a big hit right here. Caught up in the smokescreen. Quick commercial break. We'll be back for the conclusion of this race.
Nice looking rig. Roadrunner, huh?
Yeah, we're pretty well known around the circuit. I don't like to brag, but
Guess you heard of us. Don't think so.
probably don't get to that many races.
You guys tried one of these?
No. Leaner roast beef. Leaner than ever.
It's tender, juicy, real tasty.
It's Bobby Allison, the race driver. Can we have an autograph? Can we please have your autograph? My name is Fred. Can we have an autograph?
Allison.
Thanks, Mr. Allison. Oh, boy, thanks.
Hardee's, best eating in town, up and down and all around.
Since it is throwback week and we have a very hectic race on our hands, let's throw it back to last year where we had a pair of races where less than 10 cars ended up crossing the start-finish line at the end of the race. Not necessarily huge crashes, just a lot of them. You can see some of the highlights of those races at Hillside and Quarter Slammer from last season, and you can see they were some pretty big crashes in hindsight. Big hits taken all around. Cars going all over the place, up in the air. Here's a stat line of some of the races that we've seen with less than half the field finishing. Hillside ended with just 7 crossing the start-finish line. Quarter Slammer 9, Riki and Hula Hoop 14. You have to go all the way down to 5th place. Pigscliff 18 being the first one to take place this season. So a lot of cars getting knocked out last season. Meanwhile, in this race, we're just piling up the race cars that are heading to the junkyard. Bright, Davidson, Ashley, Gradden, Smith, Rampage, and Hagen all out in this one. The current leader is Connor Mays. He'll be behind John Arndt, who stayed out on the racetrack. I believe he got his lap back, but is still on the tail end of the lead lap. But it's going to be Mays out front on 2 tires. Brock and Moore also have 2 tires. Kraus has no tires. Everyone behind them has 4 fresh Goodyears. Green flag flies. John Arndt got a very good leap off the restart, and he's going to hope that these guys crash so he gets his lap back. They are tight back here. There's contact. No cars in the wall. DeBarro's low. He's going to have to slow down a little bit, regain his traction, but he is going to stay on the racetrack. No caution yet. Now it's William Brock going to the inside of the 22 for the lead. The Riki winner looking to become the first multi-winner of the season. And he is heading to P number 1. Meanwhile, further back, NASCAR Fan 19. He's a lapped car and slowing down a little bit of the field. We got Ryan Maiden making a move to the inside to Donnie Moore. Maiden would be the first car on 4 tires. And he's going to be able to clear Donnie Moore. All these cars have so much damage, it's just so hard to determine who's going to be able to keep the car underneath them. But the 99 has the fresh rubber, and he's chasing down the 22 now. Remember, Maiden was leading prior to that last set of pit stops. He was definitely able to get his car up there. Now William Brock has tracked down John Arndt. Gonna try to put him back down a lap. But he's having a little bit of trouble. Here comes the battle for second place. Ryan Maiden already to the underside of the 22 car. Unable to make the move, but he is carrying a lower line. And he's going to have the charge off of turn number 2. And this time he's going to clear him. So Ryan Maiden up to place number 2, tracking down William Brock at the front. And we are finally hitting a green flag run. William Brock's had 2 top 3s in the past 3 races. Those coming in races 12 and 13. Going to see if he can get a victory today. But Maiden is closing in so fast. Currently 19th in the standings. This would be a good run for him regardless, especially if so many of the guys in front of him in points crash out. Coming in here with 4 straight top 20s, a best of 10th though. Very mid-pack runs, but now he is trying to challenge for a win. Slowly creeping in on the 23 car as Connor Mays and Donnie Moore battling for 3rd place now. Maiden looking low, and he's going to try to take the position from William Brock. To the inside, side by side, going down the short straight. And still battling, coming off of turn 2. Philip Fry coming off pit lane, and Ryan Maiden going to clear him this time around. So the 99 car up to the front. And his Tim Richmond-inspired throwback. He's going to be able to lead this lap, get a bonus point, but he is obviously going to go for that victory. Coming down to 12 laps to go. It's basically going to be a top 10 run for him as long as he can keep the car on the racetrack, considering how many cars have been dropped out of this race. Jet Krause challenging to the inside of Dominic Carranza for 5th place. Somehow we still have battles for positions going on all over the track. And somehow this car is still on the track. Gerard Ron has been involved in so many accidents today. A couple of them being single car incidents, or at least the one that he was the only one that spun. He is still on the racetrack and going to get a top 10 in this one. That is insane. Meanwhile, Mitchell Mark, he's been in his share of incidents. We look at the Illinois drivers. Mark's the only one still out on the racetrack. Butcher's going to finish 30th. The other JR last. Mark's just barely putting up that top 10 run, but he's going to track down a run right up to his back bumper, going to try to make the pass. Now it's just a matter of can he execute. And still unable to get around the 91 who has his hood off. You would think that this would be an easy pass, but apparently the 5 is making it a little harder on himself. Trying to look to the inside here. And just isn't able to get it done. See the 16 coming down to pit lane. Look, he and Philip Fry have been coming down multiple times in the past few laps. William Brock not letting Maiden get away so quickly. Not sure if that's necessarily a draft type of situation, but 23 still trying to hang in there, but unfortunately, Maiden's going to have the fresher rubber the entire run. It's going to take a late caution without running out of laps for him to get back on a strategy that might be competitive with Maiden. Here's the gap between 3rd and 4th place. Connor Mace has dropped back to 4th as Donnie Moore has climbed into 3rd place. Moore finished 6th at Castle Gorge. That's his best in the Elite Cup Series. But now he's tracking on his way to best that finish. Currently running up in the top 3. Great run for the driver that's already won a race in the Amateur Cup Series and is already clinched into the playoffs in that series. Bernadette Barrows comes into this race. He was 17th in points overall. That's 4 points below the 16th place cut line, which is obviously going to shift as drivers continue to win races and move around. Technically, he wants to battle his way up just a little bit further, as he's not necessarily inside of those guaranteed open spots at the moment. But he is running 7th place. This should be a solid point state for him, especially with the majority of the drivers in front of him out of this race. We see Jet Krause has made his way around Carranza and John Arndt. Obviously not the performance he got right off the jump. He was probably hoping for a caution flag. It has not come. This has been our longest green flag run of the race. And with the less and less cars that end up being on the racetrack, it must make sure that we don't see any more accidents. Here's Mitchell Mark. He was able to get around a run. Now he's tracking down Noah Cars. And he's kind of struggling to get around him too. I wonder if that 5 car is having some problems just making passes. He's obviously able to make them. Just a matter of how does he execute on them as he's right up against the back bumper of the 44. You can see the damage on both vehicles. They've been in their fair share of messes. Can he get underneath them here? 44 a little bit up the racetrack. There is contact. The 44 has got his back end lifted off the ground. Meanwhile, there's a challenge up here. Dave Barrows has gotten around Carranza for 6th place. Now he's going to track down Jet Krause for 5th. As Connor Mays continues to lose time to the leaders. So even with just 10 competitive cars left on the racetrack, they are still competing for spots. Here is the playoff open spot cut line. So right now there are 4 open spots because of 3 Amateur Cup Series winners and David Davidson not inside the top 25 at the moment. So you can see Orange Shepherd, Dale Jr. Fan 8883, and Porkins coming into this race were ahead of that cut line and had those open spots as they were standing. But that was coming into the race. The playoff picture is going to change a ton as we get out of this one, as we see the Barrows going underneath Kraus for 5th place. He is trying to track down some of those points that he needs. Looking at a little bit of the timing, you can see just how far ahead the top 2 have gotten away from Donnie Moore, Connor Mays, and the rest of the crew that are still going to finish within the top 10. There's that wide gap, and there's the battles going on. De Barros trying to track down Mays for 4th. Looks like that 12 car has found a burst of speed all of a sudden. Not going to be able to pass him up here, but maybe into the next corner if he makes a move. But this is going to be a big day for De Barros. As we watch him going down into turn 3. Can he make the move here? He's going to push the 22 up the racetrack, and the 12 going into 4th place right here. This is how you make your way into the playoffs. If you can't get the victory, and the way that they are running, it doesn't look like he's going to win, at least gain as many points as you can. He's going to have one more opportunity at Nazareth to get that victory. But right now, there's 3 laps to go, and there are 2 drivers trying to battle it out, and it looks like Maiden has really gapped it out on Brock now. That fresh rubber played out, and it helped that they did not have another crash and another caution. That was kind of the thing that the 99 team was banking on, making sure that fresh rubber stayed for a long run, and he was able to take advantage of them not crashing out. There's that gap between the 99 and the 23. It is growing by the lap. This was definitely not the race that we were perceiving coming in, especially watching the Amateur Cup race right before it. There were a couple of big moments, but we still had the majority of the field still left in the race. This is just a very slim version of what is meant to be our top series. They are very much struggling to stay on the racetrack. However, someone is going to cross the checkered flag eventually. Right now, it's the white flag lap for Ryan Maiden. The 99 car has been in his fair share of scraps today. There is a dent in the door and just so much work going into this team trying to get them back up into competitive space. A best finish of 3rd so far this season. That came at 8 Bowl. That is their only top 5. They only have 2 top 10s. That other top 10 coming in race number 12 at Knox. But coming off of turn 4, it's going to be a victorious day for the 99 team, and Ryan Maiden wins at Peoria. William Brock already a winner this season. He finishes runner-up. Donnie Moore, a season-best run for him in this series. But for Maiden, that is going to get him a playoff berth, and it might lock him in based on how the standings chart looks at the end of the race. Let's take a look at the finish team results now. Maiden, Brock, Moore, De Barros, and Mays, they will all take home top 5s. There's only 10 cars left on the lead lap at the end of the race. NASCAR Fan 19, John Arndt, Eric Van Arsdale tough it out. Philip Fry and Sparky the Sun Devil believed that they were still on the racetrack, but ultimately they are just going to have some problems that will list them as DNFs. And then you can just see this entire list of drivers that ended up with bad days. A ton of crashes, so many more than we saw in the Amateur Cup Series race. Just wasn't something that we saw coming based on the way that that race was very intense but very calm at the same time. They ran so close together, but they were unable to make passes. Around here, these guys kept running into each other, so tough breaks for a lot of drivers. But here are the standings as it stands. Rampage, Philip Fry, Jake Baskinger, Stuart Gradden, Adam Mundinger, and new winner Ryan Maiden are all going to join William Brock as drivers that clinch their way in with victories, and John Arndt is going to guarantee that he is in on points That means heading into race number 16, there are 4 open spots left. The reason there are 4 is because David Davidson is still outside the top 25. If he gets into the top 25, there are still 3 open spots left that are guaranteed to go to drivers on points. Here is the chase grid. You can see the drivers in green are locked in. Drivers in yellow have victories. That means they have a berth if they are able to stay inside the top 25. David Davidson still 10 points outside of the 25th place mark. Aiden Shepard, Bruno de Barros, NASCAR Fan 19, and Dale Jr. Fan 8883 are still within that gap that can make it to the playoffs. Here are the team standings. There were troubles all around. Bruno de Barros had one of the best team days, though, as he was able to finish up in the top 5. NASCAR Fan 19, I believe, is the only car left for Ramco on the track. And here are the Rookie of the Year standings. Philip Fry with a narrow gap over Stuart Gradden, and Brad Stover drifting back a little bit. This was a very much intensified race compared to what we saw earlier on at this racetrack. But the Elite Cup Series never fails to deliver excitement, and we saw a lot of it, despite the fact that a lot of it came in the form of crashing. However, another driver has clinched their way into the playoffs, along with several that have won before, that were able to make sure that they are going into the postseason. Ryan Maiden, your winner at Peoria, is heading to the postseason. For NFRN and RVN, my name is Colin Denton. Our regular season finale at Nazareth is next up. We hope to see you there.